Okay, so you probably had questions like this before. But I guess one of the things that I always struggle with is like, if you sit down with people of all faiths who really genuinely believe that they believe, a lot of them are smart, educated, and have a lot of facts about their belief and how that is true. And my problem is that I don't feel like me or anybody has the right to choose which person is on the correct path or following the correct religion. And so my question is, how do you know that Christianity and the way that you understand it is like the only and right way? And how do you kind of hold on to that? Because I feel like that's a difficult thing. And I think there's more than one right way, personally.
Some people hold dogmatically to a truth. And the truth that they hold dogmatically to is all paths lead to heaven. Okay? Now, Muhammad, Jesus Christ, and Moses contradict that dogmatic position. Moses, Muhammad, and Jesus Christ insist there is one true living God. There are not many gods. And then Moses, Muhammad, and Jesus disagree about the way to God. Although Jesus and Moses really didn't disagree, but Jesus adds to what Moses was teaching. Man, my point is, if I say to you that 2 + 2 = 4, not 3 and not 5, I am making a dogmatic truth claim. 2 + 2 = 4. That is called reality. Contradictory ideas cannot both be equally true in the same way at the same time. It's the law of non-contradiction. So, if what you say is true, that every path leads to heaven, then that's a truth claim, right? And if somebody else says 10 paths lead to heaven, that's a truth claim. Not every path leads to it, only 10. And if someone else, like Jesus Christ, says, I am the way, the truth, and the life, no one comes to the Father except through me, that's a truth claim. All these truth claims contradict each other, so they can't all be right. They're either all wrong or one of them's right. Now, the reason that I trust Jesus Christ to speak the truth is because the evidence of the way he lived, taught, died, and rose from the dead points to his credibility. So that's why I trust him to be the way, the truth, and the light.
Do you ever contemplate that it's wrong? And like, I mean, because I guess it feels like there's no wiggle room. And not that there needs to be per se, but it does keep a lot of people out.
You bet.
I don't know how do you reconcile that?
You bet. That's a great question. And it's an honor talking with you. Your thoughtfulness, you're amazing. So thank you very much. Do I ever question my beliefs? Ma'am, I have no choice. I have to question my beliefs. I'm a thinking human being. I am convinced that if anybody never questions what they believe, they're basically on the way to being brain dead. So you always have to question what you believe. You always have to ask yourself, gosh, is this right? Is this wrong? In fact, Jesus commands us to do that. In Matthew 7:1, Jesus says, judge not, lest you be judged. He's not talking about suspending your critical thinking. Because 14 verses later in Matthew 7:15, he says, watch out for false prophets. They come to you in sheep's clothing. Inwardly, they're ferocious wolves, and they will eat your lunch. In other words, good and evil are so intertwined in this world that if you don't consistently analyze and think, you're going to get ripped off. My experience is, he's absolutely right. I will get ripped off by a con artist, a charlatan, a liar, a hypocrite. And so will you. So that's why you better think critically and be skeptical. But you better not be cynical, because a cynic can't trust anybody or anything, because they've been burned so badly. And guess what that leads to? That leads to a life of total loneliness and isolation. I can't trust anybody, because they've hurt me. People have hurt me, so I can't trust anybody here, because they've hurt me. No, don't do that. You've got to learn to trust, but you've got to be skeptical and not trust the wrong person. Otherwise, you will get hurt big time. Does that make any sense?
Yeah, but have there been times in your life where you found something that does contradict something? Like, what do you do when you find a contradiction? Because, yes, you have to think critically, but, you make it sound like you're still coming to the same conclusion, but what if you come to a different conclusion? Or, how do you... I don't know if I'm phrasing it right, but, there have to be moments in your life where it's things really do challenge your Christian faith.
Yes.
And challenge those things.
Yep.
So how do you reconcile that and like let yourself, I don't know, how do you reconcile that besides just critically thinking? So like, is it just having to kind of go into yourself and really like find what you believe? And if it does conflict with the Christian faith, is that okay? Or is that, because I feel like based on what you say, I feel like the assumption is that yes, you critically think, but this is still ultimately where you're going to end up because this is still ultimately the truth. And I think that what if that isn't the case? I feel like you have these two extremes, and I don't necessarily agree that there are necessarily these two extremes. I think that they are two extremes, but I don't know. I think there are things that fall in the middle, or at least people fall in the middle. And you can disagree with that, but
I respect your right to say that, but I think you just were pretty insensitive to me. I don't think I would have ever called you on that. Why? Ma'am, my environment that I grew up in gave me the two options. Faith in Christ, atheism. So that's why when I'm sitting next to the casket of my niece, because those were the two major options I had in my environment. God exists, God doesn't exist, God is Jesus, or there is no God. That's what I'm struggling through existentially.
Right.
Now, when somebody else from a Buddhist tradition or a Hindu tradition or a Muslim tradition comes to me and says, Cliff, here's a better option than Christ, I have to be open and say, okay, fine, tell me about it.
Okay.
And so after the funeral, weeks after, months after, because I speak on university campuses semi-regularly, I had those other options put before me. And so my question for my Buddhist friend is, what is your solution to my niece being killed in an automobile accident? And when you read the teachings of Siddhartha Gautama Buddha, the solution is very simple. Cut off your desires. Detach. I'm sorry. I find that to be hardening of my heart. I am not going to detach from the suffering in this world. Why? Because I am convinced that is dehumanizing. If I just detach, I am convinced there is real good, real evil. That's my experience, my observation. So that's why I cannot follow Siddhartha Gautama Buddha. I have great respect for the man. The way he turned his back on materialism and lived the life of an ascetic, I applaud. But the solution for suffering, to detach, to cut off my desires, I can't believe anybody would, I understand experientially why someone might do that. I'm just going to detach so I don't get hurt so badly. But my point is, gosh, that's dehumanizing.
Okay. And I hear that. So, yeah, and I didn't mean to be judgmental. It was more just that's the thought. But I understand that would be a difficult thing to go through, so I'm sorry.
No problem, ma'am. And you know something? I know you didn't mean anything by it. Okay? But I think that you've been influenced by some people who are not willing to grapple with the exclusivity of all truth claims. You see, like it or not, ma'am, if I stand back and say, all paths lead to heaven, that is an exclusive claim. It's a truth claim. Do you know what it's claiming? It's claiming that the majority of human beings on the planet are wrong. Because the majority of human beings on the planet are either Muslim or Christian. And they don't believe that all paths lead to heaven. Now, I got no problem with that. But I'm trying to point out to you, ma'am, that I think you've been influenced. I don't know this, obviously, because I've never talked with you in depth. But due to what you've got there on your shirt and your line of thinking, just watch out for those folks. You'll find them in many Christian churches who say, all paths lead to heaven because God is love. Well, that is a really incredible truth claim. That's amazingly exclusive. Because it's saying the majority of people on the planet are wrong.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am, so much.
Have a good day.
You too. Have a great one.